All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, we're going to do another fantasy nerd chat. I've got my regular fantasy nerd buddies here. I am, of course, Andrew, aka Sauron Mindgasms. And we've got, I think you might have misspelled that, Dusty. Is it supposed to say the Dwarven Centrist?
Dwarven.
The Dwarven Centrist?
Yep. Messed up.
Yeah, the Dwarven Centrist. And we have Tristram, aka Mask. And we are, of course, going to have kind of a little nerd debate about how good or bad the Lord of the Rings of Power show is. The Lord of the Rings of Power show is. I don't actually think it sucks. I think it's okay, but it sounds like you guys like it more than me for sure. And we'll get into the details about that, about the first two episodes. So, I guess actually, let me just tell you guys my kind of general impression first of all. So, I think it's interesting where they're going with it. I just I don't like a lot of the added stuff. Like Dusty and I were talking a few minutes ago about how all the stuff with the Harfoots is like my least favorite part of the show, whereas a lot of the stuff with the Hobbits were some of my favorite parts in the books and the movies. I don't really care about that many of the characters. I don't think the acting is that great. Galadriel is by far my favorite character, and I love her acting job, and she kind of looks and sounds similar to Galadriel. And my favorite part of the whole series so far is her doing that prologue narration similar to the prologue in Fellowship of the Ring. And other than her, I like that that black elf Arondir. He's probably my second favorite character. And other than that, I don't really like Elrond that much. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't do what you were predicting would be really cool if they did, Tristram, which was go through how Sauron ends up getting corrupted by Morgoth and all that kind of stuff. I kind of think like the prologue, that's part of the reason why the prologue was the most interesting part to me so far. And I think the visually it's very impressive so far, but the costumes and stuff don't really seem that well executed, and the plot just seems really excruciatingly slow moving. Like they're setting up stuff, but I don't understand where they're going with it. And I mean, like part of it is for sure like there's hardly any stabby kill bad guys stuff, but there doesn't have to be that for it to be good. But oh, and also I like that woman who's the human love interest of Arondir too. Those are my three favorite actors in it.
Bronwyn.
But sorry?
Bronwyn,
yeah, that's her name. But yeah, that's kind of my general impression of it so far. So I know that you guys both liked it more than me. So first of all, what would you say, Tristram, is your general impression of the show? And also, well, what do you think about my opinion of it?
Well, I would say good enough.
Okay.
But I mentioned just before we came on air that one of the things is that I got quite a negative impression. I'm quite old book nerdy, like we all are, and so the people I hang out with had a fairly negative impression. One of the things that's clear now that we've seen a couple of episodes is this clearly isn't the Silmarillion. They've gone from the Appendices.
Yeah. I heard that. I heard that just before the first episode of the show, that they were going to base it mostly off the Appendices, focus on the Second Age, and not as much on the Silmarillion. And we see in the prologue too that they've already defeated Morgoth and done all that stuff with the Silmarils, and there's already been the fall of Numenor and all that stuff too, right?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's not clear.
No?
I think we may still see Numenor.
Oh, okay.
But they may be smudging the timeline, and they can.
It seems like they are. Yeah.
But general impressions is all you asked for, so I'll try not to wax lyrical. I think the look of the show is good, even better than good. I think it's really good. I like the look of the show. I didn't mind the costumes. I think the costumes looked very much in line with what I would expect. The Harfoots look very rustic. They look far more rustic than the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, which is good. And the elves look glorious and pretty and super refined. And you're like, you wouldn't wear that for combat, but they do.
Mhm.
And that's absolutely fine for me. Elves should be exceptionally extra. And so I like the look. I like the way they've made the elves look a little bit odd and slightly off human. I think that's needed. And you can't make human actors look like real elves because elves are just meant to be super, super gorgeous. But I like a lot of the characters. Galadriel is a good match for Galadriel, and I find her character slightly annoying because I am like a lawful person. So like when your king tells you to jolly well do something and you're supposed to be one of his loyal warriors, like frickin' if you're a good leader, go and do it. But of course we know she's right to be a rebel. We know she is.
Yeah, because she's the only one that thinks that Sauron is still out there and needs to
Well,
be defeated, and she's
yeah,
right.
But we'll get into the plot later because actually they handled that better than I thought they would, because I thought they were going to just suggest that Gil-galad was a fool. And then as you get into the second episode, they suggest actually he knows. And he is genuinely trying to spare her the need to go into that, which is better, which is better than just everyone else has no idea. And then so general impression, look is good. The storyline is slow, but I'm okay with slow. I would actually be quite happy.
You guys love Elantris and I hate it, so that's the best evidence of that.
I would be quite happy, for example, if each series like jumped 100 years. I would think that would be awesome. I like some of the just nods to the lore, things in the language, beautiful. The way they talk about singing to the stone. This is very Tolkien. Very Tolkien, so, and I love that.
That was that was another thing that it kind of bothered me. This is like another kind of personal thing, but especially in episode 1, for some reason, with all of the poetic language of the elves, it seemed to me like it was people trying to do an imitation of Tolkien and the elves in the Lord of the Rings, like they were doing impressions of the elves rather than actually acting like elves.
Entirely possible. They were, but they definitely at least went for it. Whether or not they hit it is definitely open to interpretation, but at least they tried. And one of the things that I just want to say, I thought it was scored pretty well. Like I actually was really concerned after listening to like some of the trailers, especially the recent ones, where they did like basically pop music behind it with like
the last and most recent trailer had kind of like a dubstep score a little bit.
I was like, if they've done that in the show, I'm going to hate that part of it.
yeah.
And they did not. The music sound behind the show is very Lord of the Rings-esque. I mean, it's pretty hard to hit the heights that they hit in the film. But they did a good job, and for a TV series, I felt it was in tune, and there is a different sound to where you see the Harfoots on the plains that will become the Rohirrim. There's a different sound to the elves, and there's a different sound to the dwarves, and I wanted that badly. I really did, and so that helped sell it for me. Character-wise, I love Elrond, by the way. I know, like I like him. I think he's got that little cheekiness. He's got a youth. And one of the things that is interesting is I think they've managed with him as well to just evoke a slight twinge of future Elrond in even the look. And I think that's clever.
Yeah. That's my favorite aspect of his character. The way he seems to me the most, though, he seems like all prissy and stuck up for the most part to me. That's why I don't really like him that much.
Just remember, Elrond is like a fully
he's a diplomat.
Yeah. He's also like he is like an elven lord in the Lord of the Rings. He's like he sits in a chair and tells people what to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't even mention that he has one of the elven rings. Like I'm just not going to mention that. I'm just going to sit here and send you off to die.
Right.
So I quite like Elrond. I like the actor. I like the fact that he brings Galadriel down to earth a little bit. I love his interactions in episode 2. I'm really hopeful for that character. I really want to see where that character goes. And one of the things I also like is that Elrond and Galadriel have character arcs to come, right?
Yeah.
You can see that Galadriel
you can see Galadriel's. Oh, sorry, you were about to mention what I was about to interrupt and say, probably.
No, go on. I just mean that you can see that they're not who they will one day be, and that's good. Like, that means this show has somewhere to go. That was my only thought. Go on.
Yeah. I was gonna say you can see some major differences in Galadriel now between her and her in Lord of the Rings. She's more like she's more blunt and defiant and kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warrior, right?
Yeah.
She's like, if I put down my sword, what will I be? And we know what she can one day become.
Yeah.
She's not that person yet, and that's good.
And like I mentioned to Dusty before we started this that I don't like the Harfoots, but he mentioned that they are kind of canon, but I thought that they weren't canon. But I mean, also with Galadriel, it seems like it's not canon for her to be some badass warrior, but I still like her more than it is. Like she was before.
Unfinished Tales says that she was involved in a couple of the different wars. Like she actually fought.
Some of it could be canon that I'm not aware is canon because I've only read the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and the Silmarillion.
Well,
I haven't read any of,
that's being told is not like canon. Yeah. They take like little things that are insinuated and then they kind of do stuff based off of those insinuations.
Yeah.
But like the insinuation is that young Galadriel was indeed like an athletic goddess who was somewhat of a warrior because she did participate in a couple of the wars, like the War of the Silmarils. She participated, and she actually fought against Feanor because Feanor was the kinslayer, and she was on the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
I like some of those. That's one aspect of the show that I like, that they have little mentions of stuff that happens in the Silmarillion. Like they mentioned Feanor creating the Silmarils, and I forgot to mention too. I like that they have Celebrimbor who creates the Rings of Power, and I think that actor actually does a really good job too.
Oh, I'm so excited! That's my favorite arc.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things about Celebrimbor is they show plans for his forge. And that forge is actually in one of the video games. It's in in the Mordor games where the spirit of Celebrimbor assists a ranger. There are like towers in Mordor in which you have to activate them, and then you have to climb the tower, and on each tower there is a anvil, and his spirit strikes the anvil. And it unlocks like visibility in the area, but the actual tower with the forge looks pretty much identical to the one they presented. Because we know that there's a quest. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the show. The quest that Elrond has to go on to get assistance for forging this, but.
That forge in episode 2. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I thought it was interesting that they're like taking elements from other things and just like putting them in there. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. The whole the part where Elrond goes to talk to Durin and he's mad at him because he hasn't seen him in 20 years, which is a long time in Dwarven and human and probably Hobbit years, but is like the blink of an eye in elf time. I like that, but again, I mean, and I kind of like Durin, but again, I don't know why, but it seems like the costuming wasn't that good for the dwarves to me overall. And then also part of the slowness of the plot in episode 2 to me was, okay, now they're going to have a challenge to see who can break the most stones, and that's basically what happens, other than them having a conversation with Elrond in episode 2. But But you go ahead.
No, carry on. I'll save it for later. So.
Okay. So Dusty, what are your general thoughts of the show, and what do you think about mine and Tristram's opinions?
Well, general thoughts was I had bad expectations for the show, and I generally was not interested because I thought they wouldn't do right by anything. I was pleasantly surprised. Like, they did a pretty good job. It's nuts to see that every single episode is basically has a movie's budget.
Yeah.
This is pretty freaking amazing. So it seems to me this is more like an 8-hour movie because it's going to be 8 episodes. So like it has the budget of an 8-hour movie basically, which is pretty nuts. Because I think they spent over $1 billion on this show.
Yeah.
And it shows, most definitely.
Yeah. I mean, some of the CG shots occasionally are a little cheesy, but for the most part, it looks really visually good. Like it basically lives up to the reputation of the Lord of the Rings films in particular. I like the Hobbit movies visually too, but there's way more CG and less practical stuff, especially in terms of the scenery in those ones, of course.
It like the big shot of Valinor was just awesome. That was what a shot.
Yeah.
I saw that elven city. It just looked amazing. It looked really, really legit good to me. I'm not very critical of that kind of thing, but I was like, my suspension of disbelief had no problem with that. I was like, that looks amazing, and I love that they did the trees. Like,
yeah, that's what I was super impressed with.
Super good.
Super impressed. I was like, okay, they're looking at the lore here and making sure they're going to try to do right by it. But I know they're trying to tell a different story that's not expressly written. But that's fine. It's just like, you know, the Dragon show. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, we have these history books that are written in context of the story, and let's do a more intimate story with character. Because none of aside from, you know, the couple of characters we have in the Silmarillion, most of it is just like history stuff, and like the appendixes is just like little notes in history.
Yeah.
But I was pretty impressed. I liked seeing Valinor. I liked seeing like the little prologue was really cool.
Yes.
Budget is just super ridiculous. I was like, wow. Yeah. And then when they fought the troll, I was like, wow, this is a straight fight scene right out of one of the movies.
Yeah, Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah.
I thought it was really weird that she was like the only competent like fighter out of like the entire group that she brought with her. I was like, really? None of these other elves can like do anything except her? I was like, okay. But then again, those other elves were like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like,
they're tired, that's for sure. Like they've been basically pursuing people for years with no one actually to pursue, and everyone's telling their commander. Imagine like you were, I don't know, in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan, and your boss has been told by high command to turn back, and like, yeah, but we're not turning back. And you're like, but why not? I bet there's people in these hills, Jack. We've been in these hills for 8 months. We got told to turn back 6 months ago. My family are waiting, and you're just going to keep us going till we die? Why? Why would you do this? And also remember, elves are immortal. The only way they can be killed is if they are killed. So like they're risking forever potentially at her feet, and like I really sympathize with her band. I do think they could have easily done the troll fight better. In other words, not visually better, but like think of the troll fight in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, that's way better.
It is way better. Everyone fights that troll, right? Everyone fights it. Even though at the end it's really Aragorn and Legolas that fully take it down, but everyone has a hit at that troll like various, and it makes it feel like a big challenge that everyone got involved in. I do have some of a problem, I would say, with their action set pieces. I think they are beautifully executed. They look amazing. I think they're fine with the lore. I think they're interesting. But the worm, the water worm, and the troll both stink of, we need an action sequence. Let's have one.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
The water worm did like almost nothing.
Well, it did. It like completely trashed everything.
Just trashed everybody and
No
killed
one
people.
was able to even touch it. But the point is that it didn't really advance the plot. Like,
And no one was even attempting to fight it. I mean, like, it was just there and destroyed stuff and then left.
They couldn't really.
It's interesting.
I was gonna say if they were gonna have Galadriel like get crazy and like kill this thing, I was gonna be, come on, she can't be just like killing every creature that comes across her path. So I'm a little glad that she kind of hid out and waited it out a bit. And it's funny that she tried to criticize the human, but she did the same exact thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting her to kill it or anything like that, but I thought there could be some more of a climax with them trying to fight it or something like that.
Yeah, but he himself was like, I ain't bothered. I'm just trying to survive. Yeah. And I think she sees like humans and she's not willing to sacrifice herself for them. Like, I don't think she's in the mindset where she would throw herself her life away or even sacrifice her life to save humans that she doesn't know. Because you saw that she was trying to hide her elvishness, but it was quickly uncovered that she was an elf, and then these things turned really sour right before the monster attack.
Yeah, and that guy that she meets on that raft full of people in episode 2 clearly seems to be Hellbrand. Yeah, that's his name. It seems like he's going to be an important character in the same way as what seems like is a Maiar that those two Harfoots discover in episode 2.
Well, we need to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we talk just one last thing on the action sequences before
should we just go through POVs? Like, we could talk about all the Galadriel stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure.
So are we? Is there anything else about Galadriel that you wanted to discuss? Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, but what she does in the episodes are my favorite parts. Although, again, like I mentioned, the plot is so slow moving that in episode 2, she's swimming and then on a raft and gets attacked by a sea beast and then on a raft. And
yeah, I admit that she doesn't do much in episode 2. It's all out in the ocean.
In episode 1,
like, in comparison with 1, there's definitely more pace with her plotline.
Yeah. What she does in episode 1 is more interesting. Like, she's getting pulled off the battlefield, then she's going to be sent to that's like the Grey Havens. That's
Well, it's beyond the Grey Havens. The Grey Havens will one day be built for people to do what she has been invited to do.
Okay. That was cool that they had the ship sailing into it, and then she jumps off the ship and all that kind of stuff. And when the ship was going into the light, that was a very visually impressive sequence too.
I just want to see everyone's reaction when she comes back.
Yeah.
She's basically turned down heaven, right? She's turned down like that. But the thing that's weird is, I think it was I don't know, but I think the way the story portrayed it a little bit was like, it's a trick. Don't go into the light. Don't go into the light.
I could see that. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Because she looks at the sword, the dagger, the weapon of her brother, and she goes, sometimes you can't tell between what's good and what's bad. And like, you need to experience the bad so you can tell. And she's like, I have. And it's like, I think that a lot of people who don't know it could be like, was they like trying to trick her into death? But no. And that annoyed me a little, but hey, only a little.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that's
but so
fair.
Galadriel wise, just things that I think are interesting. Galadriel is mentioned as being involved in the wars. They've now turned her into like one of the lead generals. Okay, I'm just going to go with it. But it makes her arc be one of going from fighter to diplomatic leader, which I like. And hopefully they will execute that well. One of the things I don't want is her vengeance and determination of bloodlust to be justified by the fact she turns out to be right. I don't want to be like, as Galadriel was right, then everything about her decisions has been correct, because a lot of her decisions really don't land for me. Now, the thing is, that's fine. She doesn't have to agree with Tristram Johnson. If she did, that would be boring. We need challenging characters. But what I hope is that the show is nuanced enough to show that even though she is right, that not all of her character decisions are perfect. And therefore, she has a growth, even though she is right. I really like that they showed that Gil-galad probably does know that Sauron isn't gone. But he doesn't want to just necessarily pursue constant fighting. And like, he has this plan, doesn't he, with Celebrimbor, that like, we're going to do more, but Galadriel's like too gone. And I kind of think, sending someone who's been war shocked away from the front, but he doesn't know it as well as she does and how valuable she can be. And so she's going to be a shock to him, but hopefully he is also going to be shocked to her. Because remember, he saw the leaf with the corruption. So he knows that the corruption is happening, that Middle-earth is moving away from its spring. So I like that they didn't just show him as incompetent. And I really liked that, like, Elrond is shown as being like a peer of hers. That
that's another aspect that I like about Galadriel, kind of her brief interaction with Elrond in episode 1.
And also just we can see that, like I said, I really sympathize with Galadriel's squad, but I think that they kept that pretty good. Like, you can see that Galadriel has this passion. They don't really get it. I like the interactions with Galadriel's brother. I like the fact that this idea of, well, I thought I'd have my brother forever. And the fact that he's dead, I really like that interaction. I think they touched quite well on the idea that elves just don't die. They didn't like harp on and on and on about it, but like when Galadriel talks about losing her brother, it being such a big deal, she never thought she would, but also that she doesn't really see herself going back to Valinor. She thinks, I'll die here. In fact, dying here in Middle-earth is now more normal to me after all the war I've been in. And that was cool for me, because that's like, some guys in the military find it hard to come home. Even though they want to come home and they're happy to be home, that adjustment is like, but so many guys didn't come home. And like, I thought I would maybe be there, and now I'm not. And that mental thing, I love that they touched on that, and that they didn't go heavy. They didn't like just harp on and on about it, but they touched on it. I like how they did that with the dwarves in episode 2. Like, he's thinking, what have I done wrong? Like, oh, you ignored me for 2 decades. Yeah, but it's only 2 decades, right? Like, you're a dwarf for a long time. It's like, well, no, for me, that's a huge part of my life. Like, if we were truly friends, you would not have ignored me for 20 years. Like, oh, is that how it is? And like, I think that was really good to emphasize those differences. And the final thing on Galadriel is I'm excited to see her arc more than I enjoy who she is currently. And I desperately do not want her to have a romance plot with Halbrand. Please, please.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I hope not.
She could, because I forget her husband's name in Lord of the Rings, and I don't remember how long they've been married, but
well, technically, because before Galadriel was married, her name wasn't Galadriel.
Yeah.
So Galadriel was her name after she was married, but I guess they're throwing that out here.
Yeah, that's why Craig on his Legendarium episode that I was watching was saying that it seems like they just decided to edit him out of the whole series or something like that.
I don't think so. I think he will be her end, not her
Okay.
beginning. He won't be in
That's probably
series
part of
one.
her transition, I think,
Correct.
from warrior
Okay.
to sage.
But the thing is, that is fine. But I don't want every romance arc to be an elf and a human. It's meant to be
I agree. Yeah.
super, super rare. It's ruined because no matter how good your romance is, the human will be dead in like 60 years and you will just live forever. So it's like dating your pet, right?
Yeah. I would be phenomenally shocked if the romance between Arongir, is it Arongir or Rondir? I keep forgetting his
Arondir,
name. Arondir?
Yeah.
And
Arondir, definitely.
Arondir and what's that woman who's his
Bronwyn.
love interest? Rolwyn?
Bronwyn.
Bromwyn. Okay. I
That's
would be
fine.
phenomenally shocked if their romance ends up better than that between Aragorn and Arwen in Lord of the Rings. I would be
Well,
shocked
I don't think
if
it
it's
is.
as good as that. Yeah.
I feel a tragedy ending at the end of their story.
But that would be perfect.
That would be good. Yeah.
That would be right. But
Yeah.
the key thing is, I do not want it to be that like elf and like mixed race couplings are just the norm because, hey, let's show that we can do mixed race. Like, don't do that, please. It's the very rareness of it that makes people's surprise so believable, and that makes when Aragorn makes that choice and Arwen makes that choice so impactful, is that it is the exception because of not because they can't find each other attractive, but they're just on different world playing fields.
Mhm.
And so I would be really annoyed if they have like 3 or 4 elven and human couplings. I'd be just like, I'd want to like punch myself in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree. Totally.
Don't do that.
Um,
Okay, I'm
I
done with
thought we-
Galadriel.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of want to go. Actually, maybe we should go to Elrond next. But I was just thinking before we get into that. What do you guys think about this symbol of fire that's kind of like similar to the symbol of the Eye of Sauron, and it seems like that's going to go somewhere, and a lot of different characters are seeing it. I don't really know what to think about that. What do you guys think about that?
The eye. Oh, sorry. Go on.
The eye doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
So-
I know.
But-
It's just
but it's
like
always been
this
Sauron's
similar symbol that I'm talking about.
Yeah, but the eye is always used as Sauron's symbol, and so it's I'm absolutely fine with him using that symbol. I think it's odd that they're treating it practically like the ring, like the boy finds a sword that has that symbol.
Yeah.
Looks at it and it's like whispering to him. I'm like, "Hello." It's this,
Yeah, what is going on with that? Yeah.
like a broken orc sword. Like I'm hoping that they say that it's like an enchanted item of some kind.
Well, it has to be because it
I don't
seems
know.
to be. It seems to be. Right now, it's broken, but when it was fed blood, it started reconstituting itself. I don't think it's a simple orc sword.
It better not be, because
Yeah.
if they're just like this symbol on its own has like dark powers, I'm going to be like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Because the kid on the second episode, the kid bled on it.
Yeah.
And it started reforging itself. I was like, okay, this sword has to come from somebody really high up in the organization. It's
Yeah.
not a simple
Yeah, for sure.
sword that any schlub is going to carry around.
Yeah. I also that reminds me, I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't even see Sauron other than like one shot of him yet, and it's already been 2
we're not going to
episodes
see him
into
for
the
a
show.
while, I don't think.
I have thoughts.
I think it's good that they're keeping him a mystery, like
Yeah?
for now. I'm fine with
Okay.
that. Yeah, completely.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. He has
I thought
to
it would
be.
be more interesting if he were more of a major character in the show.
I think he will be. I think he'll be
Yeah?
introduced to us as a good guy.
Oh. Well, isn't he already set up as a bad guy?
Yeah, but they know Sauron exists as evil, but they don't. He will present himself with a face of beauty, and
okay.
because he has to, because they haven't forged the rings. So Sauron originally pretends to help Celebrimbor, and then in secret, while he's helping him forge the rings, forges the master ring to control him. So his deception has not yet happened.
Okay.
So like that's why I still think we might see Numenor.
That would be
I
really
think
cool.
Numenor is
Yeah.
in the picture here.
In Craig on the Legendarium's video, he was saying that he thinks that it's possible that the ship that Galadriel and I'm forgetting that other character's name see at the end of episode 2 might be the
Numenorian
Numenorians.
ship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Possible.
It absolutely, because it looks like in good nick. Remember, the Numenorians live a long time. They're like that. They're the greater men. They're the ones who are blessed with long life, etc. But
yeah.
So the symbol, no problem with that. I don't want the symbol to have super secret powers just by being a symbol. But I am fine with that being Sauron's symbol. I think it's cool that they've got echoes of the eye, but it looks mythological and ancient. Good
Okay.
call.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree that it would be kind of cool if that that weapon is some sort of enchanted object, but if it's just power in the symbol, I don't. I think that would be
I think it's pushing it. It's pushing it.
Okay, so let's go to Elrond. So yeah, like I mentioned, I just don't really like the actor who's playing Elrond that much, and he seems kind of snooty and like stuck up to me. But what's happening with his character is kind of interesting. Like I like how he goes to see Celebrimbor, who has charged him to basically build the structure that he's going to use to build the Rings of Power. And then in I guess that's actually mostly in episode 2. In episode 1, he mostly just like has a conversation with Galadriel, and not that much happens if I remember correctly. And then
the interesting part about that conversation, Andrew, is that he's kind of torn between two things, and the two things are, I am Galadriel's friend, and I have a duty as a politician to get this certain thing done.
Right.
And they kind of have a conversation about that. Is it you who wants me to do this, or is it something that the king is telling you to do?
Right.
So I feel that he does feel that like she deserves some rest. But then again, he's like, I'm just kind of doing what the king wants me to do. The king wants her to go there, or at least talk to him, and he wants to make sure she doesn't cause like a fuss when she for the audience. And she doesn't say anything. She just kind of glares at the king angrily in some sense. But then she doesn't raise any objection, and it's not until she jumps off the ship until she finally objects to that order to return home.
But like Elrond's character is very nuanced, I think, and there's a couple of things in it that, like, I don't know if you've picked up on, maybe you have, but like, for example, at the very beginning when he's doing his thing in the tree, the words he's using, they are the words the king uses later. So he's clearly the king's speechwriter.
Oh, right? I didn't catch that. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Word for word.
Okay.
And so, and he even smiles after the king says it. So we're definitely supposed to notice. So, but also at one point they're all invited to speak to the king, and he's told by his person, like the woman who comes to meet him, but not you. And I wonder if they're going to say, like, they're actually going to briefly mention that he is Elrond half-elven. That he is.
You mean that's the reason?
I think that might be the reason, that he is incredibly valued because he's really gifted and cool, and the king uses him as his scribe and his speechwriter and values him incredibly highly, but he can never be fully in the court. And the only reason I can think of would be that one. And if they use that in a nuanced way, and then allow by his deeds, like what he does with assisting in the forging of the rings, and eventually we know he is a holder of a ring and becomes the leader of all of Rivendell. If that can be his arc, not an emotional arc necessarily, but like a proving of himself and then him being acknowledged by elvendom that even though you do have, non-elven blood, you are amongst the greatest of us that has ever lived. That would be, in my book, a really cool, and it allows for a political as well as a fantasy arc. And I would like that. And so those couple of things seeded in that episode, I really liked. And then we see Celebrimbor brought in, and Elrond's in awe of him. They make a couple of points to show that Elrond knows this guy is super amazing. And then this idol of his asks for his help. And he says, like, you can see that he's got a great mind. He's like, this would take X time with this many people and this much money. He's like, yeah, we don't have that. Well, what if we went outside of Elvendom? And I think Elrond's the perfect person for that, because if you look at Rivendell, dwarves were welcome there, halflings were welcome there. Elrond's got that's in his character to have multiple races working together. It's a great setup. And for him to go to Durin's was really cool. I really liked how, I've already mentioned, the elf thing, didn't realize my lifespan, etc. But also, when they did the rock smashing, maybe a bit slow. But one thing I love about that is that he didn't win. I love that. Because the story
I wondered in that part if he did that deliberately so that he could ask Durin to escort him out, because he was trying to get alone time with him to convince him to hear his proposal.
Yeah, but if
I think it was a political decision.
I don't think so. I think he was beaten.
Okay.
But I think he then turned defeat into more success, because he's like, because like if he'd broken the rocks, Durin would have had to listen to him, right? So like I think he tried his freaking darndest, but actually the dwarf's better at it, and so he freaking should be. Using a hammer on rocks should be the dwarf thing, and all the dwarves laugh. So clearly they're expecting him to win. He does win, though it's a test, and then he's like, "Dang it, I can't force him to listen to me. What I'll do is I'll ask him to escort me out, because I know if I can get him alone, I can just give myself that one extra chance." And so I think it shows that Elrond isn't just invincible and elves are just better at everything, but that he is able to use his mind to compensate when even his amazing body lets him down. I'd like that to have been the message. It's certainly what I took from it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether he lost on purpose or not, I do like that. I do like the fact that he lost the rock smashing contest, like for the reason you said, that it's not the case that elves are just better than everyone at everything. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on?
Good.
I was just going to ask you your thoughts on Elrond, Dusty.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm completely okay with this portrayal. The reason I'm okay with a lot of these characters' portrayals, at least like the more established characters, is because when we've seen them in other media, they're already completely fully developed. And I want to see how they're going to play with this and see how they're going to forge these characters into what they become. So I think that's an interesting thing to see. So I'm not expecting, full-on, fully developed Elrond at this point, or fully developed Galadriel. I know some of the stuff they do is a little shocking. Elrond seems like he's learning the political ropes, but it also shows that he might have some troubles later on because of his station. But we'll have to see how he develops. But as a character, I like him so far. I don't have any problems with him. I think it's fine. I know they're setting him up as a diplomatic type of character that tries to talk his way out of situations or into, or make sure things are going into his favor. Galadriel's blunt. She's not about the talking. She's about the doing and then asking questions later. And I think that's a good, a juxtaposition between these two characters.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree that I like that juxtaposition, and even though I just don't really like the actor's portrayal of Elrond that much, and his prissiness annoys me. I do like the fact that that means that he hopefully will have a character arc, like it seems like Galadriel will too. Yeah.
yeah, and just with his scenes with Durin, like I loved seeing Khazad-dûm in like a full out like height of their civilization. Because like the
Mhm.
last thing we've seen is like a rundown mine full of orcs and monsters. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, they really paid attention to how cool it could actually look like in a dwarven stronghold. Like
Like,
my thoughts were
Yeah.
always, oh, it must be dull and boring, and but they actually made it look really nice and like a nice place to actually live.
Mhm. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things that is really important with that, Dusty, is like when they go in episode, like one of the things is in the three movies, the only real dwarf we see is Gimli, right? Gimli has to
Mhm.
represent basically the dwarves as a single actor, and thank goodness they got John Rhys Davies to do it. Uh, but um, but like one of the things he does, I love this is when they go to Moria. He says, and they called it a mine. He's like laughing. He's like, this is one of the greatest places ever. And then we get there and we're like, this is worse than a mine. This isn't a
Yeah.
mine, it's a tomb. That's Boromir's words. And then we now see why he was bragging about it. Because
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
knew it was like this glorious dwarven hold. And and did you see
Yeah.
how they even took the shots and deliberately showed like the bridge over Khazad-dûm? They
Mhm.
Yep.
deliberately showed like some of the same uh, angles as you see in
Mhm.
the movie and
Yeah.
deliberately tried to mimic it. I thought that was just, they didn't need to say it. They know the fans who were looking for that saw it. And I
Yeah.
think anything subtle like that, I am 100% in for.
Yeah. That's I really like seeing that too, like Khazad-dûm as at its height, or Moria rather, as at its height, and Durin especially because the dwarves are literally referred to as Durin's folk later on in Middle Earth history, and yeah, the interaction between him and Elrond was really cool. Yeah. So
So we got those
go
other
ahead,
two
Dusty.
to discuss. So we got Elrond and Galadriel the elves, and we got some other POVs. Which one did you want to do next?
I wanted to talk about Arondir next because I mentioned he's one of my favorite characters, and his relationship with that woman. And like I said, I think he's one, to me, he's one of the best actors on the show. I'm not sure whether he's actually canon or he's one of the new created characters or not. No, he's not canon. But
They
like I
made
said,
comment.
like
He
I
could
said,
be. There was loads
okay,
of elves. There was loads of elves. One of them could have
yeah,
been
yeah.
Elrond.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, some of the non-canon stuff does bother me, but I feel like I'm not nitpicky about it. Like, okay, Durin's wife, the dwarf, does not have a beard. Like, okay, big deal. I don't really care about that, and that sort of shit doesn't bother me. So, I mean, even if Arondir is not canon, he's a good actor, and what's happening plot-wise with him and his love interest is interesting too, and I like that they have that relationship, and in basically in episode 2 he goes to investigate this hole where it seems like orcs are coming out of or something like that, and that leads to this interesting kind of a fight between her and an orc when she's trying to protect her son in episode 2, and she has to warn her people to go away because something weird is happening and making all the people disappear. I liked all that stuff with like to do with all of that aspects of the plot, and both of those characters really overall.
Yeah, I
I
would
think the
say
interesting part. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just on his arc, like absolutely no problem with their expanding the canon. Like that's one of the reasons it's great that they chose the appendices, right? There's
Hmm.
loads of characters, they've got to make up new ones. and make it ones that have really interesting plot is great. So I really like the fact that he is an elf who has been out in the outposts serving by the humans for centuries and has become accustomed and actually is going to like them. I think that makes complete sense. It's absolutely believable. And his kind of stilted romance, which I've heard has got like quite a bit of like negative views from people, like, this is a romance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from some
okay.
people, because what they're saying is like they're standing at like COVID distance. This is like not the this isn't Game of Thrones, man. Like, where's the kissing and the fondling? And well, I'm actually okay with it because I actually think, as an elf, he knows like there's so much here. If we act on this, if I act on this, all these things it could mean. And so for him to be so reticent, I actually feel is very much in character. And
I totally agree. And also it seems like he's just maybe kind of awkward in terms of like romance and that kind of stuff too. I think that totally makes sense. I agree.
He's a warrior, right? And
he's completely buttoned up. He is a completely buttoned up type of guy. And it doesn't look like expressing any type of emotion for him is easy. And we don't see him really do it too much, except even when he's semi-professing his love, he does it in a so completely buttoned up way that it doesn't even seem that much of a profession of love.
Yeah.
Like,
it seems like she kind of almost misses it. Yeah.
He says, I have said it in every way but words.
Yeah, exactly. That just reminded me. That just made me think, oh, wow, this is like deliberately speaking to awkward, nerdy guys everywhere.
but also, like, you haven't kissed her, I'm pretty dang sure. Like, you have not used every way. It clearly, you have not had much of a love life, my man. But that is actually normal. He's been a warrior. And like, the point is that elves are not meant to be warriors. They're doing it. Like, elves are about culture and music and art. And they're acting in this way because they have to, because of Morgoth. And so it's cool to show that he is out of his element, but he has become the warrior now after all these years. I didn't think they were going to do, like, you know how he comes into the pub and they show that, like, the humans interact with him, but there's an awkwardness, and then they have that young hothead go off. And he acts like a really cool elf. Like, he could totally kill that guy, and they would not be able to do anything against him. And he doesn't. And, like, that just shows me that the elves are meant to be in control, and he understands that they don't like the fact that they're still being watched over by the elves because of what they did in centuries past, which means nothing to them now, or does it? And, and like that was really, I really like that part of his plot. I actually enjoyed that probably the most, this idea of the elves have been watching over it. The war isn't quite done, but it is. And the humans can't wait to get rid. It's generations for them. But these elves are the ones who fought their ancestors. They're still alive. They still fought your great-great-great-great-great-granddad and died and bled. And like, they're the same freaking people. Whereas for these humans, it's like, why are you still talking about something that happened hundreds of years ago?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for
sure. One
of
of the things I was going to ask you guys about that bar confrontation, did he stop the barkeep from slugging the kid? Is that what he stopped?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's right there. Because you see a fist and he goes, whoosh, and it could be that like the kid was going to punch him, but I don't think so. I think it's the barkeep is going to punch the kid to sort of shut him up. And he deliberately, as an elf, moves with preternatural speed and blocks it.
Right.
Okay.
I
think that is my read, 100%.
100%.
So what are your thoughts overall of about Arondir and his kind of love interest, Dusty, and what happens with the plot with him?
I like it that he's awkward and doesn't know how to profess love. I think that's good. He seems like this. He seems pretty withdrawn, even with his interactions with the other elves. You can tell that he doesn't agree with them, but he doesn't speak his opinion much. Like, there's other elf that talks to them, and he still speaks to the humans in kind of like a low way. whereas we can tell internally he has a conflict with that. It's not that he doesn't believe it, because he does bring that up with Bronwyn, and he's not certain he believes that 100%. But yeah, I like, one of the things I like about their story is that it's occurring on the front lines of this upcoming conflict. So if we want to see some action, I think it's going to be with this particular POV, because he's right out there in the outskirts, and they're already fighting orcs, at least.
And-
Bronwyn is.
Yeah,
That's
it seems
the
like if there are gonna be awesome badass epic fights coming up, that it's gonna be Galadriel and Arondir who are gonna be the badass warriors in those sequences.
But interestingly, I think the best action sequence we've had is the fight with York. I love that. That was freaking cool. Where Bronwyn and her son take on the orc. And they showed, because we got used to this idea that orcs come in hordes and Legolas like just kills 40 of them.
Yeah.
Right? But like when that fight happened, the fear, the fact like these people could die, right? And they absolutely could as well, because they're only just establishing these characters. So I was thinking they could legitimately kill her son and have that be a thing for her character. And they could legitimately kill her right now and have that be a thing for his character. Like, I don't know if this woman survives. So that was really like legit. Whereas I don't feel any fear for Galadriel. Okay. It still can be a cool scene, but Galadriel's not dying. But that was really cool. Like I was intensely involved in that scene. I think the scene was really good. It was on a microcosm, one person against two people who were outmatched, but found a way to win, and in a realistic way to win, which I thought was really cool. Like she stabs him and he doesn't just die immediately. And then when tries to strangle him from the loft, it's so clever. And then of course it doesn't fully work out, and the fight, I like that. I really felt the intensity of it. And when she then just smacks the head down in the bar, it's like, argue with me now, freak.
Yeah, that was badass. That was cool.
Was badass. And the thing is, it just showed, one of the things I loved is at no point do they need to say like only women can be badass in this, or you have to be like really like some huge woke thing like women have to kick all men's trash.
Yeah.
But no, it said she is a woman. She is not a fighter, but she's brave. She's courageous. She will fight for her child. She will try and stay alive. She will be clever, and she will do what she can, and she's not afraid of the truth. I love that. I think that was powerful. I think that was what all great characters should have in them. Not that everyone has to be like a martial arts badass. And so I thought that was a really badass moment, but I thought it was earned, and it really built me into her character.
Yeah.
Her
son, in that way, she kind of reminded me of Éowyn in Lord of the Rings in that way. Like, the difference is that she wants to be a warrior, but she's still like, she's not in the position of being a warrior, but she's still brave. And and some of the weakest characters, like her along with Merry, end up killing the Lich King of Angmar, which is totally earned when it happens too. It's not like they're going around being badasses or anything like that.
Absolutely. She doesn't slaughter 50 orcs and then end by just topping off by decapitating the Witch King. She fights her way through. She's about to be destroyed. Her foster father is dying. She tries to protect his corpse and is utterly outmatched by the Witch King, but he underestimates her. Merry gives her an advantage and she freaking takes it. Love it. And obviously that's one of Tolkien's written scenes, right? But what do you think about the son? Because I think we have to talk about him in this POV, like Bronwyn's son. So we could see that they're mocking him because his mum's into a knife ears, or that's what the rumor is. But then he's discovered, because of the mice, that underneath his house is this dark stuff buried from the previous era. So these people were Morgoth followers for sure. We know they were some of his most.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, that's why the Elven Outpost is there, because these people will be the Haradrim. This is
okay.
So these humans fought for Morgoth in the war, killed elves and elves killed them, but hundreds of years ago, right? So, what it suggests is that someone buried their weapon here so they wouldn't be caught with a Morgoth weapon. Like we're surrendering, don't kill us, elves. But
okay, that would make so much more sense for that weapon that the kid found to be an enchanted weapon that has some sort of like black magic connected to Sauron in some way. Okay.
And they mention that that's why the elves haven't like ever left this place, because these are the bad humans. But the thing is, there's a quick conversation with the elven commander. I don't want to dwell on it because we can't go over the whole episode, but he makes the point, like, there's two ways of looking at it. There's, it was our ancestors and we're still being blamed for our ancestors dead. And he's like, It's like, in the elven commander's point of view, they're still like Sauron aligned. Like, given a chance, these people would make that choice again. The only reason they aren't is because we're watching them. And Arondir doesn't believe that. He's like, these people are just humans. They're just trying to live their lives. And if we allowed it, it would be better for everyone. He believes in the humans. And so that's cool to have juxtaposition and neither of them be 100% right. Because Bronwyn clearly is just a great woman. And she isn't plotting any sort of attack on the elves, clearly. And some of the humans are just frustrated at being occupied for so long. But her son clearly does yearn to stick up for himself and to get rid of the elves. And this weapon could be the beginning of that. And I think that could be a really interesting, fruitful arc.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that'll be... with all that, I didn't realize that that stuff about how they fought for Morgoth. That makes me more excited about what's going to happen with that enchanted weapon and what happens with her character and Arondir. Yeah. So let's talk about the Harfoots, because I mentioned that's one of my least favorite aspects of the show so far, especially in episode 1. I really didn't care about them that much. I don't like the actors that much. I was like, why are they just like in the forest and no one has ever discovered them? These like primitive, basically Hobbit-like creatures. I felt like they just added them in because the show creators were like, well, we can't have Lord of the Rings without hobbits, except you could, though. That would be an interesting, different thing to do, even though I love the hobbits in Lord of the Rings. That would be a cool and interesting things to do. And then, not that much happened with them in episode 1, but I did like in episode 2 where they found, and I know you wanted to talk about this, Tristram, what seems to be perhaps a Maiar. I did that makes what is happening with the Harfoots more interesting to me.
Yeah, they clearly try to show them as nomadic. So basically, they hide and then they move on. Like, all of their idioms are based on carts. And like when Nori's dad is injured, like, is he going to be able to migrate? And like, no, basically. And so the key point is that they're obviously meant to be nomadic, and that's how basically they avoid all trouble. They never confront anything. And so one of the challenges for them is going to be that their evolution is going to be that Nori, who looks most up for it, is going to be a confronter instead of a hider. And so that's like going to be her arc. But it's all about this guy, right? The guy they find, who basically came from a fallen star. Now, this could be one of the Astari, and I think that's where they're going with it. I think it's going to be one of the 5 wizards. I think it's probably going to be Gandalf. I don't want it to be. I think this show doesn't. I think this show doesn't need Gandalf.
Yeah, I really don't want it to be Gandalf either.
I'd prefer it to be Radagast because
that'd be cool.
Because he has the natural inclinations. You know, he's involved with nature. He can speak. But when they had him whisper to the insects and then they did it, that's absolutely shades of Gandalf whispering to the moth to call the great
eagles.
But I'm really hoping it isn't, because I'd love them to not rely on Gandalf. But I tell you what I'd love it to be. I want him to be Sauron.
That would be cool. Oh, I saw someone
That's
mention
possible.
that too. That would be cool. That would be really cool, and he would be a good
Just-
guy for the entire show too, because it's not until the Lord of the Rings that he becomes a bad guy.
Yeah. No, Sauron's. No, sorry,
But
not
Sauron's
Sauron.
already there, though.
Not
That's the
Sauron.
problem.
Sauron. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know why I
I'm
said
saying,
Sauron. Yeah.
I'm saying Sauron. I want him to be like a good guy.
Oh, I
season
misheard
1.
you. Oh, that
Yeah.
would be really cool. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that could be part of his deception
Oh,
that
you
you were
mean
mentioning earlier.
Saruman the good, like before he turned evil? Is that what
No,
you're
but
saying?
I don't. I mean Sauron.
You mean Sauron?
But
Oh, yeah.
Sauron is already like, if we're going by what Galadriel is saying, like Sauron's already in Middle Earth somewhere.
Yeah.
So it'd be weird for him to like come down in a comet.
No, but if that is his disguise, like he's like, I'm going to pretend that I've just arrived.
What do you like? He's
We'll
that
have to
good
see.
at like not understanding language or anything that's going on or anything like that. That's one thing I was wondering about too. If it's one of
gonna be Gandalf.
the Ishtar, are they sent to Middle Earth without like aren't they sent to Middle Earth knowing what their mission is supposed to be?
Yeah, definitely. The Astari are never meant to have been like bumpkins, but you can see that he does kind of know. He just doesn't speak Middle Earth language. And if you remember when Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White, for a second he almost doesn't remember who they are.
Right. Yeah, when he sees Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, Gandalf. That's what they used to call me. And like, because remember, this guy is speaking Valar, right? So he can speak the language of the life. He just doesn't speak. He doesn't speak Harfoot. But so like, he's not like just stupid. He's having a different experience, a different life experience.
What were those 2 words that he said? I forget what they were, but he said 2 words.
Alue and Mana.
Okay.
But the point is that I'm confident he won't be Sauron. I wish he was, because I think that would be a really good way of tricking the audience, because they could bring him up as this. Yeah, you see, he develops, and then they think he's an Astari, because actually Sauron is very like the Astari. He's a Maiar. He is.
Yeah.
Valar is Morgoth. Sauron was like an Astari level Maiar. But I think, like, I don't believe it. I want it to be that, but I don't believe it. I think it'll probably be Gandalf, because I just think that's got the tick for the audience. I would prefer it to be Radagast. I really would, especially with his animal connection and with him being so rustic. But
I think it would be really cool if it's one of the Maiar that we haven't seen before in any of the movies. Yeah. I think that would be really cool.
I don't think they should do Gandalf at all. Like,
I don't think so
Gandalf
either.
out of it.
I agree, Dusty, but I just don't know if the money agrees.
Yeah.
Like
how they had to add the Harfoots, like I said. I didn't want them to, even though I love the Hobbits in Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit.
And which wizard has links with the Hobbits? I hear you ask. Oh,
yeah, Gandalf. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
your obsession with the Halflings, and that's canon. That's from the books. Like Saruman is like, what is this Halfling nonsense you're into? And one of the reasons that the ring goes undetected for so long is he put it in the fricking Shire, where no one really even knows. And if you read the book, they say, Gandalf says to them, oh, and he has heard of hobbits at last, saying that Sauron has finally even heard of this race called hobbits.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the Third Age, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But the point is that, like, the point about the hobbits is that almost no one bothers with them, and that's exactly why they're effective. But anyway, I'm interested in that plot line. I've given you my predictions. I would have loved it to be Sauron, but I don't really believe it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the plot lines that has me the most hooked, is seeing who this person is going to be. Because it's like a total mystery to me right now. It's like, this Gandalf. I hope it's not Gandalf, but let's see what happens with this character.
He did kill the fireflies.
Yeah, so he did. They did die shortly after he spoke to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know who this character is. But what I see brewing though is there's going to be some type of interaction between him and like the elder because they're both interested in like constellations and lore and stuff
Well,
like that.
Yeah, because they've got to use the Elder's book, right? Because he shows them the fireflies, and they're like, "I'd have never seen those stars, but I know where they will be." And that was really good plotting because they'd shown that he had scrolls that show stars. She doesn't understand them, but she knows that's what they are. And then he shows her constellation. She's like, "I don't know that constellation, but I know that there's a book of constellations." That's really clever because Nori is quick, could put two and two together. But they didn't just suddenly have her go, "Oh, by the way, my hobby is star watching, and I happen to know exactly where that is," which would have been like, "Oh yeah, come on." So it was good. It was good.
Because the internet is on fire guessing who the stranger is, basically.
Yep. And that was why it was a good move. That's why it was a good move, because they wanted that exact reaction and they got it.
Okay. So I kind of, you guys basically just kind of said what you think about what happens in the plot, what happens with the plot in terms of the Harfoots. But what do you guys think about the Harfoots themselves and the fact that they're there? And the two main characters, I forget what their names even are. Is it Nori
Poppy
one of them?
Nori and Poppy. They're, to me,
Nori, Poppy, and kind of like the Elder is kind of shaping up to be a mainish character.
I think they are literally Hobbit analogs. They're there to be the wondrous ones who are a bit like kids, exactly as the Hobbits are in Lord of the Rings. They're helpless but incredibly good in everything they do. Everyone is well-meaning. Everyone is kind. They are like the Tinkers from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they reminded me of them too from Wheel of Time. You mean?
Indeed.
I
misspoke. But the
they're the trailer park hobbits that are always on the move.
But I just don't think they've. I don't find them incredibly compelling. I think Nori definitely is the Little Mermaid, isn't she? I want to be part of this different world. And my mom and dad don't get it. They think I should just be happy here under the sea, but I want so much more. But the thing is, she's very willing, isn't she? She wants to help her parents. She wants to be a good person. She just has big dreams. And so I think they're likable enough. I think they've not screwed them up. I think the idea of them being Heidi nomads could work pretty well. But I think they're mainly a vehicle for inserting this guy into the plot. I think he's the main point of them existing. But actually, that's quite wise, because if the Harfoots had already saved the world back in the Second Age, no one would have ignored them.
Yeah, of course. So I'm curious too. Like one of the reasons it bothers me that there are the Harfoots there is, okay, it seems like I can buy that, you know, they've been concealing themselves in the forest for such a long time, so no one knows they exist. But depending on where the story is going to go from here, if they start getting seen by a whole bunch of like elves and humans and dwarves, then how come no one wrote about them or like mentions them in Lord of the Rings or anything like that?
Well, the hobbits don't get mentioned until the Lord of the Rings. Like nobody knows about them until then. And this
exactly.
Predates the Lord of the Rings, so we would expect nobody to know about, because we don't even have an origin story for hobbits. They just pop out of nowhere in the Third Age, but it's not like that's what actually happened, that they just popped into existence. They must have had some type of happenings before then, you know. I guess that's what they're kind of trying to elaborate on here.
And
I just I don't see how like where the story could feasibly go if it has to include them basically not being seen by most of the other characters. It seems like difficult to form any sort of plot based on that.
Well, it could be that they're just kind of like the vehicle for the Maiar character, and
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm not entirely sure what they're gonna do with the girls, I don't know if they're going to disguise them or have them hidden all the time or what, but we'll just have to see it. Like, I just have to see if they're going to do that or not. So it's too early for me to tell how far in the series they're going to take these characters.
The thing is, like, it seems like they've already been set up, Nori in particular, as important characters. Yeah, like as main characters. So even if they're mainly used as a vehicle for setting up the Maiar, I don't see how they could exit the show. Like, I don't think they're going to be exiting the show. I feel like they're going to still be consistent main characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see who they actually meet with. Like, it depends. Like, are they going to become tag-alongs that are going to be involved in like these important discussions, like they were in the Fellowship, or are they going to be kind of hidden off in the shadows, or something a little bit like along those lines? We'll have to see. I don't know.
They may even play it that people think of them as children. Because what is a thing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Was suggested that people often mistake hobbits for children.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because if you don't know another race exists, then when you see them, you think, well, in the reality of what I know, you must be a kid because you can't be anything other than that, right? Because that's not what exists. Anyway, but I definitely think that the most interesting part about their arc is the Maiar.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
That's what makes them compelling, for sure.
One thing also we should mention, though, is in each of these, they're trying to be careful to show us the corruption. Okay, so in the Arondir arc, we have the sludgy cow and the blackened ground where people are getting corrupted. In the Hobbit arc, we have things like the dead fireflies, the fact that the wolf was there, the berries, and when the guy is injured, like, the Maiar is doing things and then her dad gets hurt and they deliberately keep going between him and it as if he's predicting it happening and like drawing in the ground, and the ground is going black as the soil comes up. And that's when his leg twists and he's just sprained his ankle, but you look at it and it looks terrible. And it's blackened, the injury. Again, that's meant to be, I think, the corruption. And then the leaf that Gil-galad...
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's interesting.
And the leaf that Gil-galad turns over is corrupted. And so we're seeing in all the different places that Middle-earth is in pain. It's becoming corrupted. And I think that's like, if you like, a unifying arc, hinting that all of these people are going to come against this corruption in some way or other, which I thought was a nice thematic visual.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I think they all witnessed the Maiar too coming down, so that was another thing that connected them in the story, that they were all able to see this event, taking place, and we all got to see them from their own points of view, witness the comment.
Yeah. It seems like that's really obviously set up as going to be some sort of major event for the story for all of the characters eventually. Yeah. Yeah. So, what else have we not talked about in terms of the characters and the plot? I guess we pretty much talked about the main ones. We haven't talked about Elrond's dad.
Yeah.
What else were you going to say there?
We should definitely touch on the dwarves, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. I forgot about that. Yeah, of course. I mean, we mentioned Durin, but yeah, I like that they have Durin and they have Moria and the dwarves in this. I'll be interested to see if they have more of the dwarves, which I bet they probably will.
Well, I think...
it seems that the dwarves are going to play a nice chunk in this story, for sure. And I'm happy about that. I wanted to see some dwarves.
Yeah.
Dwarf action.
Couple of things for me, like the whole the dwarven queen or whatever, Durin's wife. Like, I love the fact that it's like people are like, oh, see, beardless and black, it's so
yeah.
The fact that she just played a dwarven woman, right, and did a good job of it, and the way that they make her really relatable, right? that like he's got this beef, and she's just like, "Come on, you men, get over it." And
yeah.
if you think we're kicking your friend who's not been here for 20 years out without food, you're barking at the wrong tree, mate. He is staying. And he's like, "No, he isn't." He's like, "Yeah, he freaking is, because I am the mistress of my own home and I will offer hospitality." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it your way." I love that. I think that's super relatable. And like, please get over yourselves. And he's like, "He missed our wedding." It was my wedding. I don't freaking care. Let's show him our children. Love it.
Yeah.
So she really won me over. Her acting was really good. She really felt like a dwarven wife. Powerful, strong, came across really well. Love their family.
I'm kind of glad they axed the female beards, because it would have just been really awkward.
That could easily look really cheesy.
Ridiculous, absolutely. The key point is, does she act well? And I think she did. And, and like that's the key point. And then I think we need to comment on the plot point, though. I do think their costumes, I do think, were a bit weird and a bit off. I don't think they managed to do the dwarves as well as they did Gimli. But that's easier when you're just dealing with one guy than with a whole pack of guys. I don't think they did as well in the Hobbit movies as they did in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, it looks like they look more authentic and weathered, and like they spent like intricate detail. Like it always looks great when the costumes look really weathered, and that they look like they have been moving around in these things for a while. But I didn't get the sense for these costumes. They just seemed like, oh, this is brand new stuff. Let's just put it on and get this scene over with.
They
are at, again, their height. But I think one thing that we definitely want to discuss is they opened the box to the glowy thing.
Is that the Arkenstone?
Well, they didn't show it, Andrew. They didn't show it.
Okay.
So they didn't.
It absolutely seems to be that it's hinting that that's the Arkenstone.
Okay.
But one of the things that they're saying is, haha, we've done something that they don't know about. Like the elves have always been ahead, kind of sharing their scraps with us. But now we dwarves have got ahead in some ways of where the elves have been. We've actually outdone them in some levels of craftsmanship now.
Yeah. I did kind of get that impression for it perhaps being the secret reason that Durin didn't want Elrond there.
Absolutely.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, his father for sure did not want Elrond there.
Yeah.
But then he says, his dad's like, well, maybe it's not a big problem. We just have to make sure that we keep this advantageous for the dwarves, which is great though, right? Well, for me anyway, I want this political intrigue. I want it. I want the Gil-galad intrigue. I want the Elrond intrigue. I really like the fact that Durin and Elrond are pulled in more than one direction. That makes it more interesting. More conflict is good. And if they're going to bring the Arkenstone to it, all well and good. If it was later on in the plot, I would think it was one of the Dwarven rings, but they're not.
They're not made yet.
So it can't be that. But I wonder if it's definitely craftsmanship. And you know how like they sing to the stone, and that's allowing them to do things. And what it could just be is just straight up mithril.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's also possible.
Because one of the reasons they came to Moria was not gold. The reason that Moria is so precious to the dwarves is that it was a repository of mithril, which is obviously the most precious and most valuable of all metals. And what could they be making?
And when they get for mithril, in order to get to mithril, is that where they have to get closer to where the Balrogs live, or something like that?
You have to dig too deep and too greedily. But the thing is that like we're centuries and centuries away from that. So this what it could do though is like they could do almost anything they want, right? They're in the appendices here, so they could be like, aha, this is the crown of mithril that is like super powered, or the hammer of mithril with which you can forge crazy stuff or whatever. They can do anything they freaking like. But I think they're going to go Arkenstone because they seem to want to keep linking things to the movies.
Yeah, that's why I agree with you guys that I don't want that Maiar to be Gandalf, but it seems like that's very likely to end up being the case.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
We'll see.
I just thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask you when we were discussing that. Do you guys have predictions about what it's going to be that's happening with I keep forgetting her name, but Arondir's love interest with the village? That seems like it's something that's coming underneath and making all the people disappear.
Oh, straight up orc invasion.
Okay.
Yeah, like orcs tunnel. So I think what's happened is the orcs have not been wiped out. They've gone underground, which is absolutely perfect with the lore. Okay. Like the reason the Uruks can go during the day is specifically how they've been foraged. So normally orcs can't stand the daylight at all. So the only way they can move during the day is underground. So it's perfect with the lore for them to have Morgoth's last followers have gone underground to hide from the elves, and they're moving slowly inland, ready to reemerge with the corruption and once again attack the world of men, which is what we need for all our big action sequences. And so I totally think that's happening. As the corruption's spreading, the orcs are attacking. They've come up from underground and killed everybody.
And that could also give a lot more merit to Galadriel's belief that Sauron is still out there.
And when they do, I think that's when they will. This is my prediction: is the orcs will kick off, the armies will reunite, and then they'll go, "Oh, Galadriel, you were right all along. You are our top general," and that will allow her to go and do some kicking ass badassery, and I think that's what the show wants. I think that's what I think a lot of the people are very happy to watch some of that kick ass stuff.
Me for sure.
And I think Elrond will then become the backup guy who's making the rings, and I really hope we get to see the rings made and then the rings used. Oh,
yes,
let's see them used. And
I want to see a lot more Sauron eventually, and him like corrupting people and manipulating people and shit like that. That would be so cool.
I'd love to
see. If we do see the rings forged, I'm pretty sure we're going to see Sauron in some form or another.
Yeah. I think the rings will be like an arms race a little bit. That they'll be like, oh, right, we didn't really need these. And like originally Celebrimbor is going to be like, these are going to be for great creations of beauty. And then they're going to go, but actually Sauron's just kicked back off, or like his forces. So we need to use these as weapons. And he's going to be a bit gutted, I think. And there's going to be a conflict of, should we use these great creations for something as mundane as war? And like Galadriel and Elrond will come head to head on that, right? Elrond,
that would be cool.
It should be about art and creation, and Galadriel's like, we have to deal with evil first, and they'll both have a point, and and I think that could be really good. And then the Númenóreans, who will be brought in because Galadriel will have connected with them, they'll be totally up for the war, whereas the elves aren't. And so she'll be like, right, well, I'll just get the humans, and then the elves will go, okay, we're coming. And then they'll
another alliance between elves and men. Yeah, that would make sense.
But it has to be, right? Because eventually it leads to the last great alliance of elves and men, and the actual fight where the ring is struck from Sauron's hand.
I wonder if they're going to end the show like basically at that battle in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring. That would be so cool if they did that.
What I do know is young Isildur has been cast, so it's certainly possible.
Cool. Okay.
If young Isildur has been cast, that's definitely where they're intending to end it, because he only lives like 30 years max. So that immediately puts a limit on the show.
I think there will be time jumps in the show. It looks like, but the time jumps are probably going to occur for the non-elvish character. So you're going to have Elrond and Galadriel, they're going to be relatively unchanged. But it sounds like many of these human characters might not survive by the end of the show just due to those time jumps.
Possibly. But to me, that's good. the show should not be in service of the actors. The actors should be in service of the show.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm excited. I'm excited to see that happen. And I definitely think that I would love to see a good show that's the slow build, and maybe after 5 seasons, 6 seasons, culminates with an all-out 3-episode-long battle against Sauron, where we
that would be awesome.
That would be brilliant. That would be outstanding.
Like a similar sort of scale as the last battle in Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
And the thing is, we know what's going to happen, but they'll have to try and make it interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
How will that go down? And that's going to be cool. And one of the things that's going to be great is we might see some of our beloved characters die in that battle. The only people we know who can't die is Elrond and Isildur. But we will have,
and Galadriel, of course.
Which I don't think she'll be in it.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant in terms of the timeline. Yeah, for sure.
In the battle. I think Galadriel, I'm hoping that what's going to happen is that Galadriel and Elrond will switch places.
What do you mean?
Because Elrond is in that battle, that's why.
Yeah.
Elrond
okay.
So, but what I mean is that their characters will both have to go through an arc. Elrond will have to realize that sometimes you just have to kill people when they just are so evil. And Galadriel, who is consumed at this moment still by vengeance, will have become beyond that and actually realize that she can do more good by becoming the true queen of all elves. And so she will actually have taken a step back from the direct violence to be the overall leader. And Elrond, who has been saying, oh, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do that, will have to accept that sometimes you do have to do that, and will have stepped into the breach. I don't know, but I'd like to see that switch.
Yeah,
that would be really
seems
cool.
That the logical conclusion to a show called The Rings of Power would be at that moment where the ring gets chopped off.
And especially
past that, the story is already told.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it would be really cool and ballsy, but also make sense for them to basically have Sauron win at the end of the series, because we know that in Lord of the Rings, he does ultimately get defeated anyway.
Yeah, but the thing is, that scene makes a great point because he is defeated, but not forever.
Yeah.
But it still gives us a triumph moment for us to end on. And everyone knows that the trilogy is there to be watched and does not need tampering with.
Yes.
So is the One Ring, is that Sauron's Horcrux?
It kind of is.
You can't say that because, just to be clear, that's like saying, is Drizzt Do'Urden is Legolas like a Drizzt Do'Urden takeoff? You have to get things right. Tolkien is Papa Tolkien.
Is Sauron basically Voldemort?
Yeah, exactly. What you're saying is that J.K. Rowling was like, I want Voldemort to have a bunch of rings. I'm going to go for 7. And if
I'm just saying it's called a Horcrux. Well, a Horcrux is a very specific thing.
It is.
Not necessarily like a ring of power or anything. It's just a vessel of the soul of the character.
But what is the one ring, Dusty?
The vessel of soul.
But the point is,
it's the other way. It's the other way around. J.R.R. Tolkien, J.K. Rowling copied J.R.R. Tolkien in those ways, even if she didn't do it intentionally.
No, the point is that, and the thing is, it predates Tolkien. Tolkien took it from mythology. The idea of having their soul in something predates the written word. And a lich having a phylactery. This is something that goes back into mythology, like undead wizards having like a repository of their soul. If you could destroy it, would destroy them. The original tales of vampires, that like their coffins would have some of their essence and they had to return to the coffin in order, all that stuff. Anyway, soul stones.
I just like saying the word Horcrux. That's
that's
the only reason I brought it up.
I'm sure you do. But I couldn't let that stand. Not when Tolkien was clearly way before.
Yeah.
That's all I need is someone to come on now and go, Tolkien, such a ripoff. He just took everything from Harry Potter. I am going to go ballistic.
Oh, this Lord of the Rings of Power show is such a ripoff of Harry Potter, man.
No, do not do that to me. Do not do that to me. I can't accept it.
Oh, yeah. So what did you guys think about Elrond's dad?
Elrond's dad?
Yeah. Or wait, no, was that not
Durin.
supposed? I mean the king. I mean the elf king.
Oh,
I just
Gil-galad?
Gil-galad.
yeah, Gil-galad, not Sauron's or Sauron, not Elrond's dad.
father. No,
Yeah.
I like Gil-galad. I think Gil-galad, just like Durin's dad, the Dwarven King, are being used as we're not getting their POVs, and so it's theirs. They can have secrets,
Right.
deeper secrets, right? So I think both of them are going to be gray characters. They're going to deliberately.
That's interesting.
They're going to have them be the people like, I'm doing this for the greater good from my perspective, but I could actually be doing things that you as the audience consider actively wrong. Whereas I don't think they can really pull that on with us with either Elrond or Galadriel, because we see so much from their point of view that if they were trying to deceive us, we would be like, it's basically an ass pull, right? You've deliberately hidden that from us when we've never seen them suggest anything like it. So I think that's the main role of the two kings, is going to be that they're going to be political machinations going on in the background. They're going to be lying to their own side and to the other side, but possibly not just purely for evil, but very likely for selfish gains.
That would be cool. Yeah. I would like
one
to see that happen.
One of the things I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you think of the overall dialogue and the quality of the dialogue from the show?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned before, I don't like it because it really seems like kind of cheesy to me. Like they're trying to do imitations of Tolkien characters rather than doing it seriously. Although I had less of a problem with that in episode 2 than episode 1.
I don't mind it. It sounds, but I wouldn't say it's amazing. Like, it isn't like super witty, but it should. Like, they didn't have the dialogue that I'm just like, oh, this is fantastic dialogue. Oh my goodness. No, not at all. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like witty banter and wisecracks. Like, I don't.
Oh yeah, that's not what I meant. Yeah.
I think they went for Tolkien, and I appreciate them trying. As it turns out, they're not J.R.R. Tolkien. And it doesn't look like any of them studied languages their entire life. Sucks to be them. But also, like, Beowulf doesn't sound cool to people today.
No.
Like, if you try and read someone Beowulf, like I've tried to read Beowulf to my children, and it doesn't go down well. Just so you know.
Because it's written as epic poetry, it sounds better when you listen to it as an audiobook, because I've both read it and listened to it as an audiobook. I think it sounds better it works better as an audiobook.
We had like in my community up here, we had a talent night a few years ago over Christmas, and one of the people did a live reading of Beowulf as his talent.
Okay.
Like an expressive reading of the Beowulf poem, and it was amazing to me, but the children in the audience, even the young lads, totally, even some of the ones who do D&D with me and stuff, disengaged.
I can see that.
Then the clown act comes on and they're like, this is great, kick him in the crotch. And it's like, there's a difference, right? And like, it's one of the reasons I think that the Wheel of Time did Tom a bit dirty, and like had him be, medieval Mick Jagger instead of being like, because they know, and you know what? The people who've watched the show who don't know Wheel of Time quite like Tom and like the way Tom's portrayed, and like, oh, he's pretty edgy and cool. And the only people who really have a problem with it are the ones who are like, where's his freaking harp and his mustache, and where's my bard? And But the thing is, bards don't really play well in the modern audience because we're used to TikTok, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So this idea of sitting down and quietly listening to someone sing and speak for an hour straight is just, it's gone from the
Yeah.
normal human entertainment experience.
The
And
only way that Tom's edgy in the books is that he's also a badass killer and is really good with knives, and he's really good at getting women who are super hot and younger than him. Those are like basically the only ways.
mysterious. He has a hidden past.
Yeah,
But he's gotten, but that old, I think they went for that old fashioned language, that old fashioned entertainment, that poetic language, because that is Tolkien. I don't think they fully hit it, but I'm giving them props for effort.
Yeah, I get that. And one major thing that I actually do appreciate about the show that I forgot to mention was one aspect that I mentioned when we were talking about one of the trailers before, which is that I like that they didn't try to make it like Game of Thrones or like House of the Dragon now, because we have grimdark fantasy. Tolkien is not grimdark. I like that they didn't try to make it grimdark.
Yeah, agreed. And so happy with the 12 rating. And like they have like a completely naked man on it, and it's fine because they don't go, hey, let's have a look at this schlong for 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't even remember a naked man. Who's naked?
The
Maiar when he first gets there.
Oh, I forgot. They don't show like his butt.
They just have like clever shadowing, so you don't see his dick or anything.
No, it's absolutely tasteful. But what I'm saying
side
is,
cheek.
they're like, he's born from a star. He wouldn't be born with clothes. So they're very careful. They do a long distance shot, and they immediately. But what I'm showing is you can do things like, well, they're naked without being Game of Thrones, right? You can do that without being in your face if you choose to. And I'm really glad that they have taken that tack, because I don't have a problem showing this show to my 11-year-old. I have a problem if my 11-year-old goes to watch Game of Thrones. Like I would actively say, not in my house.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
But like maybe when you're like 16, maybe you make a different call. But at 11, I'm making that call for you. But this show is down enough that you can still have all the adult themes, which there are definitely in here. Romance is in it, death is in it, politics is in it. And yet it isn't grotesquely in your face. And I do appreciate that more legendary tone rather than grimdark tone. I think they were wise not to try and compete directly against Game of Thrones in Game of Thrones' own arena.
Yeah. They would have failed at that. I feel. I'm glad that they're like I'm glad that they're doing that. And both of these shows, this and House of the Dragon, are out at the same time, but they're different types of fantasy. So they're both fantasy shows. So you could say they're competing in that way, but they're different types of fantasy. So they're not like directly competing with each other.
100% agree with that statement. And again, the Tolkien purists, I'm not a purist, but I'm close. And I would have found it a bit of a betrayal of Tolkien's themes if they'd gone, because even in his writing, like when he describes his battles, he isn't deliberately grotesque. And when he describes his romance, he is not sexy. Okay.
Yeah.
At all. And so it would have, like, to me, it isn't as important that they get things word for word correct, like beards on dwarven women and no black elves. That isn't as important as the feeling behind his work. Like his work is that like we should respect nature. Nature's really important. The earth, the value of the earth is so valuable. That races mingling and working together is the strongest way forward. Like that you use different abilities from different types of people. And that the people who are often overlooked and looked down on often have the strongest hearts and can be of greatest value. Those themes should not be betrayed.
Yes.
Everything else, I think, is up for grabs in a good story.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So anything else? Any other aspects of the plot or anything or any of the characters that we haven't discussed yet?
I don't have any gripes. Like
All right.
at the moment, I think if I do, they're minuscule and small. Like it's nothing really that takes me out of the story or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't remember whether we said that. I think we might have mentioned this before we started the stream, but yeah, some people are criticizing the show for being supposedly woke because there are all these black characters, but like we've talked about before, what determines whether it's woke or not is whether it seems like these characters are whether these characters are good actors and their characters actually make sense and they're good characters, or whether they're just clearly token black people to just throw some black people in there. So I mean, none of them are like cringy social justice warriors that are in Lord of the Rings for some reason. So yeah, I don't think that's a woke thing.
I totally agree with you. I was worried because of all the rhetoric, and then I watched the show and I'm like, there's nothing to worry about here. In the show itself, there is no like, by the way, let me tell you my political message. Being a liberal leftist is the way to be, and if you're not, there's something wrong with you. That is,
you're basically Sauron.
That can happen in shows. I've seen shows that give that message pretty blatantly.
Like the new Resident Evil show for me is one of those. I couldn't finish it.
Already been canceled.
Oh, good. I didn't like it. It was terrible.
Because you know what? Just 5 seconds on Resident Evil. That first game is a masterpiece. Someone please just adapt that straight up. It's got a powerful female lead. It's got a powerful male lead. It's small. It would take almost nothing to shoot. It's got really low, really intense horror vibes. One of the most atmospheric games that's ever been made. Like, do that. Why won't anyone do that?
I saw there's a Resident Evil movie that came out recently called Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, and that is the adaptation that is closer to any of the games than any that I've seen. It kind of seems like they try to combine aspects of the first 2 or 3 games, but they had like all the main characters in the games and basically had something very similar to that plot, and I thought that worked pretty well. And I do like those original Resident Evil movies with Mila Jovovich, even though they're not very based on the games at all. Like the first 3 of those I really like anyway, especially because I hadn't played the games when I first watched those. But yeah, like you could easily make a whole series that just are directly based on the games with all of those characters and all of the plot, and it would be really good. Or at least it could be.
Yeah.
So I have not seen the Resident Evil show, but since you guys are saying it's so bad, I have to watch it now.
Yeah. I bailed after the first 3 episodes.
But the point is, tangent aside, I was affected by the anti-hype, and then I watched it, and I think that's one of the reasons I was more pleasantly surprised, maybe than as disappointed as maybe some other people with some of the lack, because I was like, oh, thank goodness this isn't just beating me over the head with a political message. I think it should be mentioned, though, that some of the actors and some of the showrunners have not done the show any favors by sharing like their politicized views and linking it to their behavior in acting in the show. I don't think that was needed. And unfortunately, I think other people have latched on to 1 or 2 comments and are just repeating those comments ad nauseum as if it's an argument. It's like someone mentioned, if you have a problem with the show, it might be because you're racist. And like that comment, that comment has now been repeated by hundreds of people who are anti-woke people who are going, this proves that Lord of the Rings show is going to be crap and it's rubbish. And they need to like chill out and think this is one actor making a random, not thought through comment, and then just watch the actual show. Watch the actual.
I was unaware of this controversy. Which actor said this regarding Lord of the Rings?
I heard about that too. Like some of the show creators were saying they want to make it woke, basically, or some shit like that.
The thing is that you put it into YouTube, you'll see many. It's not the purpose of our podcast.
Yeah.
But the point is that sometimes actors and showrunners make comments that are not helpful to the product of art that they've created.
Mm-hmm.
And the art product I'm much happier with than I thought, because I had been misled, partially because people had commented not on the product itself, but on what other people who might have been involved in it had said. And not even most of what they said, one or two lines that people took and thought, that's clickbait. And it just shows that when you listen to an echo chamber, you surprisingly hear the sound of your own voice.
And when you judge a show before it's even out.
But don't you think that is a problem with places like, for example, IMDb, that allowed you to rate shows and comment on shows before they exist? I find that a problem. And Goodreads does that with books. You can start rating books before the book is released. And I know that people get some early copies and things like that, but I think that should just be a blanket no-no, because I know you can still do a fake review that you've never seen the show afterwards. You can do troll reviews, etc. But allowing someone to review a show before it exists is begging for people to comment basically on a trailer. And, if that first teaser trailer that was done before post-production did not look good.
No, it didn't.
And the show looks clearly better.
Yeah.
Which is
and it's really great that even though there was this controversy about how the show was ruined by wokeness, that it hasn't been like overtly in your face woke pretty much at all.
The actual show itself, I think it has, because again, I hate the fact that when I say woke, I always say it in a negative way. Like, it has the themes of anyone can be a hero. Anyone can be a leader.
Yeah. That's a Lord of the Rings theme, though, like you said.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's also the true message of what the people who are behind genuine wokeness are after, right? They're saying, look, we just want equality, we want balance, we want diversity, and those things are all good things. And if people would just not feel the need to actually ram it down anyone's throat and just allow it to exist, that would be very powerful. And like some people saying woke isn't new, and I agree, it isn't. We've been slowly evolving over 60 years and getting more and more diverse. But
it used to be called political correctness.
The biggest problem is the marketing. The marketing. Like, if I were a showrunner, casting director, blah, 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 the only reason they would say we hired this person because of diversity is to get some type of points online. Why don't you just say, oh, they're a good actor and they did really good during the auditions? That's why we chose them.
It takes away from them, especially if they have really good performances like Arondir. To me, that takes away from the merit of their performance.
Right. So I don't even know what they were saying. Like, I try to distance myself now from that Twitter type of universe when they talk about these types of things.
Yeah, me too.
Great choice.
But if they're gonna say, "Hey, we chose these actors because they were good at acting," that's the bottom line, and that's simply should be said. You don't need to say, "Oh, we picked them," because saying that you're picking because of diversity means you're picking them because of their skin color, which I think is just as bad as anything else you could say. Like, hey, these people are good actors. Let's go ahead and push that fact, not the fact that they have a different skin color.
Or whatever. Like, I remember an editorial about the show Will and Grace years ago, and said, "Oh, this show was, in some ways ahead of its time, like really portraying a main character. The main character is gay." It's like, but unfortunately played by a straight man. And I was like,
have you heard of this thing called acting? That's what people do. Gay actors play straight people too.
And that's not unfortunate, is it? That like Ian McKellen can play a straight man and have a straight romance on screen and be proudly gay. And like, that's normal. That's normal acting. The ability to portray something you are not well. and respectfully and correctly, like embracing it fully for what it is. I hope you can portray a Dark Lord of the Sith without being an evil megalomaniac. But,
yeah, exactly.
It did make me like go, oh, what a shame that it's like, unfortunately. Like, why unfortunately? Doesn't it show that guy's like, I believe in this character so much that my own sexual orientation is irrelevant. I really want to play this character because he's a great character. And I think like there is now clearly plenty of people of different genders, sexual interests, all in Hollywood. And so now I think we really can just allow talent to speak for itself. And on the whole, I think this show does seem to have got a very good bunch of actors and actresses. And I think they're doing their, I think, I don't see anyone who just looks like they're like, I don't give a crap about this. I think all those actors look like they're really trying their absolute best to portray the characters that they've got. Some of them are better actors than others, but they're all decent or very good.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think you guys like the show more than me, which seems mostly because in general you guys have more patience for slower plots than I do, for sure.
Yeah, like even I think the House of the Dragon has even slower plots than this, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, especially
but
like
they sprinkle little things though in between that slow plot. But
yeah,
to me
fair.
it seems a bit slow for the House of the Dragon. But you know, they have like nice set pieces and stuff. I think it's very similar.
Yeah, I guess it's the grimdark aspects that make it seem less slow to me, perhaps. But yeah. All right, so yeah, I think we've done a pretty thorough discussion of the show so far. So I would love to talk to you guys about the next episode when it comes out as well, if you guys are up for that. So yeah. So yeah, I guess overall it seems like we all think the show's okay, at least. Like I said, I think the show's okay. I'll keep watching it, especially because they keep adding connections and characters that make it more interesting to me. And you guys like it more than me, so it's definitely at least a worthwhile show, and it's definitely not just like terrible woke garbage like some people were saying that it's going to be. So it's definitely worth watching. So people should check it out and let us know all your thoughts in the comments. And I'm not going to get into debates with people about how it was woke garbage. I'll probably just delete comments like that. So too bad for you. But yeah, if you want to get into any interesting debates, you're welcome to that. And yeah, so thanks everyone for watching. Click that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this everywhere, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. And tomorrow, Dusty and I are planning on talking about episode 2 of House of the Dragon with ideally with our friend Chris, who does movie chats with us often. So look forward to that as well. And check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description of the video as always. And if you give me $10 a month, you can vote on future books, movies, and topics that I will discuss both by myself and with others. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And the Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien in general are awesome. Read all the books, watch all the Lord of the Rings movies, especially. Even the Hobbit movies are good, in my opinion. Yes, I will piss off some people by saying that, but the Lord of the Rings especially have been I watched those before I ever read the books, and those movies are still so powerful to me that there is still, no matter how many times I rewatch them, there are still moments that are so powerful that they bring tears to my eyes sometimes. So Tolkien is awesome, and that's why I appreciate that they're just that the fact that there actually is a Lord of the Rings TV show is just fucking awesome. All right. So, anything else you guys want to say before we end it there?
No. I think
That was
we're
well
good
said.
and covered. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Always fun. And thanks again, everyone, for watching. And adios until next time.